Hey guys, we'll just be kicking off in about 2 minutes, just giving everyone a chance to get settled in. So just less than 2 minutes. Okay, guys, we're going to kick things off. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Really appreciate the next hour of your time. We do have a chat bot, so if you'd like to introduce yourself or ask any questions, please feel free to chat away. We'll dip in and out as we can. My name's Phil. I'm from Werewolf. I've been working in the tourism industry for the last 5 years, working closely with a lot of tourism operators to help them figure out ways to use data to target their databases. So really excited to take you through some slides. And joining me is Andrew Simpson from TourismTiger, which I'll be handing off to in about 20 minutes. So he'll give an introduction to himself then in about 20 minutes. So the topic of this webinar is securing direct bookings from your locals market in 2021, which is an incredibly hot topic. I think a lot of businesses have had to change the way that they do business over the last 12 months. And the narratives that I've seen and the ways that businesses have adapted to this have been incredible and just shows the resilience of the tourism industry as a whole. So just a couple of items that we'll be covering today in a nutshell. The first being ways that you can supercharge your locals market, meaningful data that can provide actionable items, how to collect data in 2021, making your website user-friendly, starter tips on browser abandonment and how to handle it, and then some Q&A at the end. But feel free to ask questions throughout as well. So the first question that I actually have for you is, what have you done to increase your local visitation over the last 12 months? And what have you struggled with? So you can type an answer if you want, but do ask yourself, have you done anything to increase your local visitation? Or are you just waiting simply for COVID to be over? So yeah, it's really just a great time to reassess what your business's message is, and can you start adapting and thrive in this new locals market? So the first thing to overcome, in my opinion, is that first hurdle, which every local has, a barrier put up against wanting to do things in their own city. And I experienced it myself. I thought I was too cool to do something in Dublin City that was built for tourists, or I thought I knew my city quite well that I wouldn't need to go on a tour. So challenge that narrative with your locals, because I guarantee you every single local feels that way to a certain extent and has never been challenged on that. So I've compiled a couple of email taglines that I received over the last 12 months that interested me. And the first one being, do you really know Dublin's history? So I'm from Dublin, Ireland. You can probably tell by my semi-thick accent. But this was the first email that I received that kind of got me on the hook. I thought I knew Dublin's history, but as it turns out, I didn't really know Dublin's history. So I was intrigued to know a little bit more about what this tour had to offer. The second one was, have you ever been kayaking in your city? And my answer to this was no, because it's freezing in Dublin, Ireland, and it's October. So who would be crazy enough to go and offer kayaking tours at this time of year? But I still looked at the email. And 10 things to do in Dublin during COVID-19, which was a blog written by a tourism operator. at that time as well, which is a really clever and inventive way to actually generate leads, is to start a blog. Sorry, actually this afterwards. Sorry, somebody asked, will this recording be shared afterwards, or the slides? Thank you so much for reminding me that was supposed to be in the housekeeping, which I rushed through. This recording will be shared afterwards, as well as the slides for a limited time only. So you don't need to take notes. So yeah, we'll be sharing this afterwards. So I was on the hook from that point. These were three things that I hadn't really thought about, and I was intrigued to know a little bit more. As a local, what I wanted to do was find a tour that offered a little bit more. So locals always want more from experiences that are offered to tourists. They want a discount or a deal, or whichever it is. So if you're not offering a locals discount, that's the first thing that you need to do. I'd imagine most, if not all of you are, but you need to be able to captivate your locals audience with the discount that will make them feel special. That's the first thing you can do. The second thing for me, and what got me on the hook, I started Googling tours in Dublin City, historical tours of Dublin City that me and my friends could go on. And I came across this one that was homeless walking tour of Smithfield. And it turned out this tour of my city offered or took a certain price or a portion of my ticket and donated it to a local homeless charity. And I'm a person who's conscious of giving back to society, and I also want to be able to spend my money and have a good conscience about the way I spend my money. So it kind of was the perfect mix of enjoying myself and being able to give back to a community. So I would just think, as a business, is there something in your area that you can link into? Are there other businesses or charities in the area that people care about that you can link into, that you can just provide that extra value add for your locals market? There's probably a lot of competition in your area. If there's not, that's great. But if there is, you need these separators, especially for your locals who want more. So if you're offering a discount, you might be one of 50 other businesses in the area that are offering a discount. But if you're doing something with the local charity, or if you're a kayaking tour that you want to help with local marine life, advertise it on your website, because I guarantee people resonate with that, especially your locals. So if they're half thinking of going on the tour like I was at this stage, this is what sent me over the line. It was a tour that was helping the homeless people in my area. So it was a bit of a no-brainer. So what I would say is I've received a lot of emails over the last few months with business owners kind of pleading with me. And I'll be honest, it didn't really work so much. You have to obviously let your locals market know that you're struggling. We're all struggling at this time, some more than others, but it's just being honest, it didn't resonate with me. What does resonate is excitement. And that resonates with absolutely everybody. So I would just say, don't plea, especially if they've never heard of you, but build excitement around your tour. So find the thing that makes you and your business different and champion it. And I guarantee you that will be far more intriguing for a local to visit your business than pleading and pleading, because everyone's receiving the same types of emails. And I know it's true. Again, I know we're all struggling, but if you want to captivate that audience, you need to find the thing that makes you different and wear that as your badge, and champion that. And also build connections. It's a great time to actually go down to your local tourism agencies with a bottle of wine and build personal connections that way, because they're the people that ultimately recommend your tours. We live in an era where we haven't had as much human contact as we'd like. So, I speak to a lot of tourism operators who have done this in a safe way, obviously with COVID. They've gone into the local tourism agency. They've introduced themselves and say, hey, I actually run a tour down the road. Here's a bottle of wine. I'd love if you could recommend my tour to anyone who comes in, or any local that comes in. It's just a great way to build connections with the locals market. So the next thing I want to talk about is a database, and I'll talk briefly about how to actually build a database as well in a couple of slides. But if you have a database, you need to use it. And this is how you get your message out to your locals. But it's also important in many different ways. It allows you to control your own growth rather than actually being over-reliant on single marketing channels like OTAs. OTAs is the biggest buzzword next to data in the industry at the moment. And it just means that OTAs are a single source of income for so many tour operators. And if they increase their fees or made it impossible for you to work with them, they would take a huge chunk of your revenue out. So data allows you to actually control your own growth by targeting areas that are working instead of areas that aren't working. So like that, it allows you to be strategic with your marketing budget. Again, finding out where customers are finding you from, where your locals are finding you from, what age demographics your locals are coming from, and what social media channels they're using. Data also allows you to reach more customers for the all-important social media reviews on TripAdvisor and on Google as well. So locals care a huge amount about reviews, and that could be the one thing that makes them choose your business instead of a different person's business as well. All of these factors kind of compound into a single decision that a person will make when booking a tour. With tourists, it's kind of easier almost to captivate them, but with locals, these decisions are based on a couple of different factors, and reviews are definitely one of those. So data allows you to obviously then target your locals as well. Generally speaking, or historically speaking, I should say, this was only really during the shoulder season. So we worked closely with a lot of businesses at Werewolf, where we helped businesses find their locals market in the winter and then offer them discounts. But now the kind of whole of 2020 and a lot of 2021 is a shoulder season. So it's important to use this data to figure out where your locals are, demographically speaking, and then how to target them with specials and discounts. So data is ultimately sustainable. So then how you can use this database is you can then target your customers based on their birthdays, or with zip codes, or by their genders or group types, or by Mother's Day. Imagine an automation you could set up that 100% of your customers before their birthdays received a special discount for them and their friends to go on your tour or trip. Or how powerful would that be? Or before Mother's Day or any sort of special occasion. There's a huge amount you can use this data with, as long as it's presented to you in a meaningful way. So that gets me onto Werewolf, or actually will get me onto Werewolf after this slide. So meaningful data is hard to come by. And why? Your customers aren't as forthcoming with their information as they used to be. You don't have time to gather data and transcribe it into a database. But the good news is, and what Werewolf does, is electronic waivers can do this all for you, as 100% of your guests need to or should have to sign waivers. And that waiver information is automatically collated into a searchable and actionable database. So this is what Werewolf's waivers look like. So I'm not too sure, and mention it in the chat if you are or if you aren't using waivers, but it's an incredibly great way to capture data from your clients, because data is such a hard thing to come by in this industry at the moment. Especially with COVID-19, we're seeing a huge rise of every single type of operator having to use waivers, whether you offer a high risk or a low risk activity, like a walking tour. So waivers can be as simple as scanning a QR code on arrival. So a customer walking into your business, scanning a QR code, maintaining social distancing, entering all this information that you can then use afterwards from their own devices. It can be as simple as having a kiosk on site, or it can be even easier than that. Your customers can receive their waivers in advance before they actually get there when they make a booking. Most importantly, you get to gather the information and gain insights that you need. So you can ask them, where did you hear about us? Where are you from in the world? What zip code you're coming from? Gender types, group sizes, how long are in the area, which won't be too relevant to locals. But you can ask whatever you want as a part of your waiver. And the best thing about it is that it's formalized under a waiver and a signature. So people don't really ask why you're asking me these questions, because they need to sign a waiver. So they may as well tick a few extra boxes and give you some information about them. Online reviews, it allows you to gather information, or waivers allow you to gather information from 100% of your guests and not just the person who made the booking. So information is power, especially email addresses. So what you can do is automatically send 100% of your guests a thank you for coming email after the tour or trip. But you can also start then using that information again to retarget locals, asking them questions like, how well do you know your area? Have you ever been kayaking in your city? Or 10 things to do in your area during COVID-19 or lockdown. you have the information, but now you've got the information in context. You know exactly who this email address belongs to, what age demographic they belong to. Any bit of data they've entered on their waiver is now attached to this email address. So you can get creative with the data. You can start targeting your locals in different ways. But with online reviews, how important are they? And I just want to stress this again, and this isn't just for your locals, it's for your entire customer base. But 86% of your consumers will read reviews for online businesses, including 95% of people who are aged between 18 and 34. So this is absolutely massive. Your online presence means a huge amount, especially for your locals market at the moment, who will be doing, who will be reading online reviews before they go on any experience. Consumers read an average of 10 online reviews before feeling able to trust a local business. So people aren't just staying on the top reviews and reading them, they're actually going through every single review, or not every single review, 10 reviews before they feel like they can trust a local business, which means that you need to keep your social media channels alight with a lot of social media reviews. So by collecting email addresses from 100% of your guests, it means that every single customer is then given the opportunity to leave you a review afterwards. 40% of your consumers only take into account reviews written in the past 2 weeks, which is up from 18% last year. I often get asked the question at Werewolf when they're saying, I don't actually want to email 100% of my guests. I think I prefer to selectively only email certain customers, and that way I can cultivate my online presence. So TripAdvisor and Google My Business and Yelp will realize this, and I'll actually push you further down the ranking. But also it's important to know that customers are actually reading reviews or they're only taking recent reviews into account. So if they see that there's only old reviews on your social media channels, it'll spark up a red flag in their minds. And 57% of consumers will only use a business if it has 4 or more stars. So that's down to you guys. Ultimately, we can't control that, but that's down to the experience that you guys actually offer yourselves. So I just wanted to show you, but before I wrap up, a review and actually an actionable, or not a review, I should say, but a comment one of our customers gave us in Capterra about Werewolf. The most important thing that I want to draw your attention to here is that they also sold 150 gift vouchers from an email campaign that's sent to previous climber, and they have a consumer database. So data is king. And that's ultimately what Werewolf allows you to do. And if you're not building a database in any capacity, whether it's with Werewolf or any other company, start doing it, because it's so important to be able to build these things up and become sustainable. So building a database and have it presented to you in a meaningful and actionable way can give you results like this. You can email your clients or your locals market, generate excitement, build relationships in the industry, and thrive in this new marketplace, because domestic tourism is here to stay, definitely in the short to medium term and in the long term. So if you've done nothing to kind of captivate this new audience, I would urge you to challenge your locals narrative. And if you're one of those people who says, I offer this tour, I don't think my locals will want to do it, ask them, challenge them, ask them, have they ever been kayaking in your city before, if that's what you do, or do they really know your city? Because it sparked up something in my head that made me book a tour with a company in my city, which is something I didn't think I'd do. So there is opportunity there. So if you've got any questions about Werewolf or what we do, you can email me, phil@getwerewolf.com. Happy to answer any questions about our electronic waiver solution. Ultimately, we are a way for you to capture data about your clients and use that data in a meaningful way. The way just happens to be electronic waivers. So happy to answer any questions if you have any. And I'm going to pass over to Andrew now from TourismTiger. So Andrew, are you good to go? I think you're muted on my end, unless I...
Ah, there we go. Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let me share my screen. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Phil, for opening it up. Yeah, I guess before I start, I'll go over a little more of who are TourismTiger. the company that I work for. So we were established in 2014. We are a website design and management company specifically for tour and activity operators. And we focus on building websites that don't go out of date by using our own unique system that is continuously updated and improved. This is where my team comes in. We take care of the websites after they launch. It's a monthly service where we do updates, we make changes based on whatever the clients want. We add pages, right? We basically do a bunch to make sure the website stays updated. And currently we have 112 active clients on Tiger Care worldwide. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of, especially when you're targeting locals and gaining data is, your digital presence, right? You need a website and, just having a website isn't enough. First step is making your website user-friendly. So one of the things you can do is ensure easy navigation, right? This means a smooth menu, a clear menu, I should mention as well, right? If you have a drop down that says tours and then you go there and your about us is in there for some reason, right? That's obviously not clear. Or if your tours are under about us, that's even worse, right? Anything where people can book, right? Or go to a call, you want them to be able to get to that easily, right? So that's where your menu comes in. Having a clear, smooth menu is huge. Right. Another thing you want to ensure is clear CTAs, calls to action, right? Book now, call now, inquire now, reach out, sign up for newsletter, right? Make those glaringly clear, right? You'd be surprised at how many people go on websites, right? And they see a link there, or there's a link that says book now, but it's blends in with the rest of the page. This is, a very common thing we'll see where, oh, you're not getting bookings because there's no button or it's not clear enough, right? So ensuring you have clear calls to action all over the site, not just one place, right? Multiple places per page. And then above the fold. So for anyone who doesn't know, above the fold is when you load a site, whatever shows up without having to scroll down, that is above the fold, with the bottom of your screen being the fold. So yeah, just making sure that, for example, your menu is above the fold, right? You have CTAs above the fold, like view our tours, book now, right? Call button, social media, tons of stuff above the fold, so people don't have to scroll far to navigate, right? It's especially on mobile, right, where people are even more pressed for time. Another big thing to making your website user friendly are visuals, beautiful visuals, specifically, right? And especially with tours, right? If we're talking about a water bottle, I don't need to see a bunch of photos, right? But with tours, right, people want to know what the tour is going to look like what type of experience are they going to be in the middle of. And when you're doing photos and also videos, right, this applies is try to follow three principles, right? Three types of things you want to show. One, location, right? Two, action, right? You want to sort of show people doing the tour. Location, I should mention, if you have any, particularly beautiful photo ops on your tours, make sure to show people those, right? They will want to go to those locations and get their own spin on that photo op. And then third is people, right? Anyone can just go to, I don't know, a lake and take a nice photo. But they want to see people enjoying your tours, right? People with smiles on their faces, or maybe group photos after tours are really popular. Videos as well, especially for anyone who does like multi-day experiences where you're not going to publish 80 photos for people to go through, right? You want, especially in the interest of time, videos are usually really good at getting content across, especially because you add in sound and you can add in a special direction, right? So with a photo, someone can look at it a certain way. Like, for example, in this photo on the slide, I can look at it and say, oh, hey, that guy's in an inflatable kayak. That's pretty cool. Someone else might look at it and think, oh, wow, I'm looking at the mountains in the background. That looks really cool. With a video, you have the option to kind of direct what people should be paying attention to. And, you can impose text and put sound in there. And then, on a local aspect of photos, right, or visuals in general, right, make sure, challenge them. Say, like Phil was saying, make sure you're going to show them something they're not going to find on their own. For example, in Boston, right, anyone can walk past the North Church or Paul Revere's house, right? But to get those locals in, you want to say, have you really seen it? And show them a picture of the inside or show them a video of the inside of something. Obviously, with outdoor tours, it's a little different. But that's the idea. You want to show them something that they won't be able to find themselves. Another thing is testimonials, right? So Phil did a really good job of explaining why online reviews are really important. And I'm here to say why you should put them on your site, right? So again, people want to see fresh takes, right? 40% they want to read within the last 2 weeks. If you have testimonials from 2012, or even honestly, even like 2019, at this point they might even be obsolete, especially with the amount that businesses have changed. Those are things consumers think about, right? Oh, they don't have any testimonials from this year. Maybe they stopped doing quality service because of the pandemic. They had to change something. So making sure your testimonials are updated on your site is really important. And another thing is locals want to see local reviews, right? If I'm from Boston, and you're doing a tour that's promising to show me a piece of Boston that I've never seen, I want to see other Bostonians approving that, right? Obviously, if someone's coming from Australia who's never been to Boston, you're showing them something they've never seen. But if other Bostonians are saying, "Oh, hey, this tour is really worth it for locals," obviously it adds to the affirmation, right? And something to keep in mind is a lot of like platforms like TripAdvisor or social media don't necessarily ask for location when leaving reviews. So when you ask for a testimonial, make sure people share that information or their location, right? And then, this is just a rule of thumb, right? Make sure your homepage, right, and all tour pages have testimonials, right? Especially for, structured data in Google. If a tour page has testimonials, it'll show up in the result of saying like, oh, this has testimonials you can look at in the search result on Google. And then for your homepage, obviously, it's very important. It's one of the first things people see is that you're a well-reviewed service or tour operator, I should say. Another big one is mobile friendliness. This one can be a little bit more complex. For anyone who has dedicated developers or a custom theme, it's a little more easy to do this. But there are things that if you go into the editing of your site that you can do, like personally, someone with no development experience, right? One of them is not using huge blocks of text, right? On a desktop, a paragraph might show up as 2 lines on the screen. On mobile, that might show up as the entire screen, right? So that especially on mobile, that's really off-putting, because when people are booking from mobile, they're trying to be quick about it. They're trying to see the highlights, right? And photos as well are big on mobile. Which brings me to my next point, right? You want to make sure your images are optimized for mobile. This is purely related to site speed, right? When I say optimized, obviously I mean, beautiful photos, right? That goes to my past point, but I'm talking about file size here. If you use something like tinypng or tinyjpg.com, that will take your photo and compress it, right? So it may go from 1 megabyte in size to half that, right? And when you're thinking about serving a site, the less size of assets on the site, like photos, the faster it will load, which again, for mobile is very important. Another thing, in a next gen image format, they call it, even though I would consider it like current gen, is WebP. Look up a photo converter, just convert your images from JPG to WebP and put them up on your site, right? It's basically an even smaller possible compression size for WebP. And then another thing is Google Search Console. Especially in terms of mobile friendliness, Google Search Console will be your best friend, especially if you have developer help or some type of support system to help you go through the more technical side of things. But Google is really good with help documents as well. So if you go through Google Search Console, you can look up what errors, right? You can see, okay, what's causing issues on mobile? Are there usability errors? Are there speed errors? And then run through Google Help Docs to say, okay, how do I fix these, right? For example, if you don't have testimonials on a page, you might get a Google Search Console error, depending on what you have as structured data for the page. But that's a pretty common error, is not having testimonials. Cool. Another big point is accessibility. So accessibility is really for anyone who is vision, hearing, or like motor skills impaired, who needs to use some sort of software to go through the site, right? You want to make sure that your site can accommodate that. Okay. Um, and also, if your site's accessible, it covers a lot of technical SEO bases, because Google, in a way, is sort of like a screen reader software, right? It goes through the code of your site and determines what's on your page, in terms of images, content, structured data, keywords, right? All that fun stuff. So making sure your site's accessible is also going to help SEO. And obviously, the biggest part of this is you want your site to be able to be used by anyone. And then on images, right? This is a big one that a lot of people miss. On images, it's really, really easy to just give your image proper file names, proper alt text. Alt text is basically what a screen reader software will see, because they can't process an image. So your alt text should just be something simple, like person, eating a donut in Boston, right, or whatever, eating a donut in any city. And when the slides are shared, these links will be clickable. But there is a company called WebAIM that has a fantastic tool to test your site's accessibility. And yeah, more specifically local trends for making your website user-friendly. Number one, address and phone number, right? Make sure these are on every page. I would recommend putting them in a footer of a site. A lot of like custom themes or templates have footers that will show up on every page. So getting the address and phone number there are huge, as well as, a contact us page is a very obvious location to have it as well. Right. And then maps, right? Put maps on your site. Google Maps have integration. Bing Maps has an integration on most sites. And then this one isn't exactly on your site, but make sure your Google My Business profile is optimal, right? Make sure it's updated with hours, information, FAQs, obviously address, phone number, best directions, right? Having an updated Google My Business profile is really going to help your local search results to get people to your website. Another thing you want to do on your website is location specific keywords, right? So if I say, oh, I do, walking tours, where, right? It's really just simply putting New York walking tours in your headlines, right? Or, walking tours of Boston, right? Headlines, metadata, those are all really easy places to just update your keywords and add location in there. And what's going to help, even alt text, for example, with the images, right? That when Google goes through, it's going to read these locations and say, oh, these guys are relevant, or this website is relevant to X location, right? So it's going to show you for people in that area searching. And then another big one is city pages, right? And these are really a trend that kind of arrived last year. And it's just, for example, if you have multiple locations, right? If you are a tour operator that does, I don't know, bike tours, but you do it in multiple cities on the Eastern Coast, make sure, Eastern Coast of the US, right? Just to specify. Let's say you do Boston, Philadelphia, New York City, right? Have a dedicated page for each city. Give your address in each city. Give your local phone number for each city if you have a different phone number for each location, right? Again, hours, basically just be specific. Another thing you can do on city pages is recommend things in the area, right? Say, oh, hey, these restaurants are nearby. They're great. I don't know. I know the chef. He's a good friend. Right? Other like amenities or services, right? Oh, hey, you're in the area and you want to do a bike tour, but I don't know. Let's say you also need a repair service right nearby. Let's say your car needs a repair service, or parking, right? Parking is a big one as well, especially for cities. But just noting, right? Again, the more content you put for that area, the more Google is going to recognize that your site is from that area and more relevant to that area, which is a huge piece. And then another thing you can do is do directions from nearby popular hubs, especially for people who aren't in cities, right? For example, let's say you do whitewater rafting, and the closest city is San Francisco, right? Have a page dedicated to, hey, are you coming from San Francisco? Here are directions, right? Here's what to do when you arrive. Here's what to look for, right? Or, oh, maybe stop by this on the way. It's a really good restaurant, or it's a really good sightseeing place, and then even in city, coming to us from, like let's say I'm in Boston and I'm right next to a metro station or a bus station, right? Having in-city directions like, oh, once you leave, turn right, look for this road, look for X, surrounding area. And those are a lot of things that can help Google recognize your website as local, right? And that can help your local organic traffic. The other thing I want to talk about is browser abandonment. So yeah, it's kind of building off Phil's point of data being king for this year. Obviously, collecting customer data is huge, but specifically to your website, one thing I want to talk about is browser abandonment, because this is something a lot of people who come to us, right, at TourismTiger, they struggle with, and it's something we see a lot of and work to fix. So main thing you want to look at is entrances, exits, and bounces, right? I'm going to explain all of this as you will see going forward. But if you have Google Analytics, right, which again, if you have a website and you don't have Google Analytics, please let my one takeaway be put up Google Analytics, right? That is a really easy way. It's free to collect data on your website. And as Phil mentioned, if you're not collecting data, you're behind. So in Google Analytics, on the sidebar, basically follow this menu path. It's behavior, site content, all pages. I'll go a little bit more over it in a couple of slides. The first thing we're going to look at is entrances. And this one's pretty self-explanatory. It's where people are entering your site. And again, with all data, right, when you're looking at Google Analytics, right, kind of take a step back and ask yourself logical questions, right? Does this entrance data make sense? Are 80% of my traffic coming to my site through my About Us page? Why? They shouldn't be doing that, right? You want people to be coming to your site through landing pages, right, or city pages, even, especially in terms of local traffic, or obviously tour pages, right? That is the best. If they land on your tour pages, that means they were looking for specific tour, right? And hopefully, if you have clear CTAs on your tour pages, they're one click away from booking, which is huge, especially on mobile, again. And then, with pages like About Us or Terms and Conditions, something where you maybe want people to check them out, but you don't want people to land there. Consider marking those as no index, which you can do through Google Search Console as well. You can submit a URL for Google to exclude from search results through Search Console. And then another thing to look at when you're looking at entrances, obviously you'll see a direct number. But in this same overview of data where you can see entrances, you can also see how much time people are spending on a page, right? You want people to spend more time on your tour pages, right? Your home page, don't get me wrong, it's nice, it should be pretty, but you don't want people spending 8 minutes is probably more likely on your homepage. Your homepage should just be a more fleshed out version of your menu, right? It should show tours, reviews, right? Join newsletter, basically a vertical version with photos. But you want people to spend time on tour pages where the more they read, the more photos they view, the more videos they look at, right? The more directions they see, they're more likely to book. Right, so here are the two fun ones, this bounce rate and exit rate, which will show up as % exit in Google Analytics. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't just call it exits or exit rate, but it'll show up as % exit. Bounce rate is going to tell you which pages people are leaving without acting, right? And by acting, I mean clicking on anything, opening any links, right? If you have links to other pages, right? Or something like that. Basically, they maybe open the page, scroll down, and then leave, right? So bounce rate, obviously, is very bad if it's very high. an average bounce rate, right, is going to be 40 to 60%. Because if you think about like bot traffic or site crawlers, right, that take up a large part of internet. But something particular that you want to pay attention to is if a page on your site has high entrances and a high bounce rate, right? That is a very dangerous combination. Let's say you get 100 visitors to this page, but your bounce rate is 90%, right? That means only 10 people are actually doing anything, right? That's not a lot considering you've gotten 100 visitors organically, right? And especially organic traffic, it's hard to generate a lot of organic traffic. So you want to make sure you're getting an efficient amount of organic traffic, right? So look at pages, right, with a high bounce rate and say, okay, go to the page, look at it. And, for blogs, for example, are people reading this and then they don't have anything else to click, right? Do I link to other blogs? Do I link to a questionnaire? Do I link to other services, right? And tour pages are huge as well. You don't want to see bounce rates on tour pages unless you have it set up so when people book, they bounce. But even then, actually, that would show up as an exit, not a bounce, because they'd be clicking, which is taking an action. Which brings me to percent exit, right? So that's going to show you where people are deciding to leave your site, right? Same thing. Step back, think logically. Why are they leaving from this page, right? One thing you can use is a heat map, right? So I recommend hotjar.com. It's free you can do 3 heat maps on your site for free. Obviously do like a home page, a tour page, and then in this data, if you see a specific page, feel free to look it up or put a heat map on it, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to show you a concentration of heat, right? So where people are clicking is going to show up red. Where people aren't is going to show up blue, right? Hot, cold. And you can also see, it can show you data on how far people are scrolling down the page as well. And then a really important thing to understand is exit rate and bounce rate are not the same, right? So when you're looking at your data, be sure to note that if someone leaves this page, right, it might not be a bounce. So for example, if I land on a homepage of a site and I click onto my tour page and then I leave from my tour page, it would show up as an exit on the tour page. Now, let's say I land on the tour page and then leave without doing anything. That would be a bounce, right? So your exit rate and bounce rate are usually, there's usually going to be a difference. If your exit rate and bounce rate are the same, that will likely mean, people are landing on the site and leaving without doing any action, all on the same page. Cool. And yeah, and then obviously I've been talking about this data and haven't mentioned local yet, but you can filter in Google Analytics local. So as you can see, I've mapped out the original path as well, right? Behavior, site content, all pages. And as you can see, you can click on secondary dimension. And if you scroll down under users, you can select by city, right? So check where people are visiting your site from, right? Are locals abandoning your site? Maybe you're not challenging them with your calls to action or your content or your photos. So that's just a really important thing when you're looking at this data, especially in the guise of domestic travel trends, right? Be sure to set a secondary filter. Otherwise, you're just looking at overall data on your entire site. And yeah, that's all I have. For any questions, right, on anything I've presented, feel free to reach out to me at andrew.simpson@tourismtiger.com, or if you want to book a call, this link will be in the slides as well. Obviously feel free to ask questions on those calls, or if you want to talk about Tourism Tiger or Tiger Care, I'm open on those calls as well, or just questions about other website stuff, right? I'm happy to help in the industry. I see we have a hand raised. I have a question. I saw the hand raised, but I don't see a question from that one. So Helen Soto, bringing in a question. What would you recommend for new tour businesses who don't have many testimonials yet? Right. So yeah, this is a big one, right? Obviously, if you don't have any testimonials, you can't put them on your site. One, right, if you have past visitors, right? Maybe someone who, like, especially if you're a tour business who's been doing tours and are just starting to build up an online presence, right? A lot of businesses start like that. Reach out to past visitors, right? And then if not, right, where, for example, if you do waivers, like as Phil was saying, waivers are a really good way to collect people's emails and reach out to them for testimonials, right? Because these are people you know have been on your tour. Another big thing is social media. Obviously, again, you don't want testimonials from people who haven't been, but reaching out on social media and saying, hey, who's been on one of our tours? What did you think, right? And then obviously down to tour guides, right? When your tour guides are on a physical tour, make sure they're plugging your social media and your review links on at the end of the tour to be like, hey, you know, guys, I had a great time, blah blah blah. Hope you enjoyed Boston, right? Leave me a review. Go Red Sox, right? Get a little chat going. Yeah, and let's see. So I have that one. Cool. That's all I see in the Q&A. Phil, is there anything in the chat?
No.
Sorry. Now I see it.
People signing off and saying thanks from Visit London Taxi Tours. So yeah, thanks very much for coming. If there's any more questions, we're happy to stick around and take them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, we have for TourismTiger, if you check out our blog, we have a lot of really good tips on stuff like building testimonials as well, and kind of building credibility in the industry. Andrea, thanks for the reminder. But yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, we've actually got a few. Sorry, I think.
Oh, there we go. Now they're rolling in.
I think they're mainly for website and SEO. So if you can see them there, if you want to take them.
I can. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna take, or actually, Helen was wondering your take on the testimonial question as well, Phil. Let's start with that one.
Yeah, so it's a tricky one. It's a double-edged sword. You obviously can't, it's hard to get more customers without online reviews. But if you don't have any customers coming, then you can't really generate online reviews or testimonials. But the one thing, yeah, just to reiterate what Andrew was saying is that you can reach out to every single past customer in a meaningful way. To kind of extract that from, it can just be a telephone conversation or an email. They don't have to sit down next to a typewriter and type out a big long testimonial for you. You can extract small tidbits from conversations that you've had and use that as a testimonial. But yeah, it's one of those things that comes up a lot. The one thing I would say is that TripAdvisor, for example, it's quite easy to soar up the rankings on TripAdvisor as a new business. I don't mean easy in the sense that anyone can do it overnight, but the top rated activities on TripAdvisor aren't the ones with the most reviews. Sometimes it's somebody with 50 reviews, and they started a year ago. But the reason they're so highly rated is because they favor in the TripAdvisor algorithm, which is quality, quantity, and recency of reviews. So if you're getting high rated reviews relatively often in a short amount of time, you'll find yourself soaring up that TripAdvisor ranking quite quickly. And then because of that, more people will find you and you'll get more reviews. So what I'm saying is that in this kind of beginning period, it can seem like a lot to get those first 10 reviews. But that's really all it is, just kind of getting those first 10, 20 reviews. The algorithm takes over from that point, and then you'll start getting more customers, and then reviews will become easier. But treat every single customer as an ambassador of the business. Do everything you can to get a review out of them, or call them up on the phone, reach out to them through social media, get them to mention your guides as well on TripAdvisor. People love that when they say, hey, was on this tour with Andrew and it was great. Really enjoyed ourselves. That kind of adds the the personal element to it. So yeah, it's a small hump to get over initially, but I would just say do everything you can in terms of contacting your clients to do it, and the upside will be massive then in the short term.
Nice. Yeah.
I just realized my camera's been off this whole time as well, so I apologize. I set perfect lighting as well for the webinar, so I'll give you 10 seconds of my perfect Irish lighting.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, nice. We're getting more questions rolling in as well. Cool. Next one is from Carlos Lopez. We are a small tour company in Puerto Rico. I guess we should prioritize in getting the website Google friendly and updated. Yes. It's kind of a tough cookie to or a tough cracker to break, right? Because you want your site to be Google friendly and updated for sure, right? But make sure you have content and stuff on the site. Obviously that will help it be Google friendly. But if your market mainly comes to you from social, right? Focus on social and have a website that's not super updated, right? Like having a bunch of nice features and bells and whistles is great, but especially like budgetary reasons, right? Having a page with your contact photos, testimonials is a good start. And then in terms of Google friendliness, right? Google Page Speed Insights. I have my qualms with that tool. Maybe Google Lighthouse or tools like GT Metrics are really good in terms of checking your site's performance, right? Because Google friendly might not necessarily mean that it's a great site, right? Like they have core web vitals that are specific to Google, and especially Google is having a big algorithm update coming in May. Where those core web vitals will be important. But you want to balance that with the functionality of your site. But yeah, I mean, I guess short answer is yes, you should prioritize having a website being Google friendly and updated. Some really simple things is making sure you have metadata on every page, right? Making sure you don't have like optimizing your images, for example, is really big, especially for mobile. Right, making sure all your files and assets are as small as they can be. And then in terms of updated, right, that's, in terms of new features, right, you want new features, but focus on having the website functional first. Cool. Next one, Ruth Berman. Thinking of upgrading my website, but concerned that SEO will take a dip. Why does that happen? Yeah, so basically what happens when you upgrade a website, depending on there's a bunch of factors that can go into this, but probably one of the main factors is your domain, right? Are you keeping your domain? If you have a domain and you have strong ranking potential on that domain and you change your domain, your SEO is going to take a hit because Google, right, doesn't automatically, there are obviously things you can do to tell Google that, oh, this domain is going to become this domain, right? But it's not going to be immediate, right? Again, think of Google. Google is constantly crawling sites. And when you change things up, it's a little bit confused at first, right? It's like, I don't know, re-entering a house and then the bathroom is not where it used to be, right? It throws you off at first, right? And maybe you get up in the middle of the night and you go to the kitchen instead of the bathroom. But eventually, right, you're going to recognize where it is. And something, again, Google Search Console, huge friend when it comes to organic rankings. You can submit what's called a sitemap, right? So when you upgrade a website, if you add a bunch of new pages or change the structure around or add new metadata or add schemas, right? You can submit a new sitemap. It's basically like holding Google's hand. It's like, Google, I've changed my site, just so you know, right? You'll still see wobbling in the ranking, but it'll be quicker to recover. But yeah, definitely like domain and then URL, specific page URLs as well. You want to be careful with those, right? If you change every URL, you might see a big hit in SEO. But obviously, like keywords and stuff, when it comes to content, those are easier to change up a little bit, right? Because Google won't kind of Google won't give you a penalty or anything for changing up the wording of a paragraph. Cool. Next one. Another question from Helen. If we're using Google Analytics, do we need to also use the analytics from other tools like Werewolf? I will say yes. I mean, again, building off like Phil, what Phil said is very true. Like data is king, and Google Analytics, for example, is gathering data on your website. Whereas Werewolf, I'm sure Phil will give more, but Werewolf is collecting data on people who've been on your tour. It's collecting different data. And then Search Console, for example, is data specifically on organic traffic to your site from Google, right? So yes, you should use analytics from other tools. Obviously, just be sure you're measuring different types of data. I don't know, Phil, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on the Werewolf side.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Oh, sorry, I think my microphone's too loud there. So yeah, Google Analytics is a great insight to how your customers are finding you online. In a lot of cases, your customers might find your business through a friend, through word of mouth, or through a kind of non-online source, but then actually use TripAdvisor or Viator to book your business. And that's not where they find you from, it's where they book with you. So you're only getting a certain part of the journey with Google Analytics. In some cases, I mean, in some cases you get the whole journey. With Werewolf, you're getting information about, did they find you through not only online sources, but word of mouth, through print media, iSites, tourism agencies, all these other things that cannot be translated to online. So again, what might happen is I recommend a tour to my friend. That friend then goes online, Googles it, but you don't know what the part of the journey, the customer journey was before that. So yeah, I would say that Werewolf, and Google Analytics side by side is completely optimal. It's measuring two different types of worlds that can compound and give you some incredible insights. I hope that answered anyway, Helen. Let me know if you need any follow-up.
Cool. All right. Cool. So next one comes from Sean Power. Well done, lads. That was quality info. Thank you. As a tour operator, it's a very hard sell to the domestic market. Any ideas on a creative campaign? Yeah, so I think Phil will be able to speak more to this because I'm more of the website side. We don't do like digital marketing, but I mean, me personally, for being a local, like I know personally, like what I currently live in Santiago, Chile, and I feel like I know a good part of the city. But if someone were to sell a tour for me, the key thing I would want out of it is, okay, I want you to take me somewhere where I will never be able to find on my own, right? Like some hidden gem that doesn't show up on, like Yelp or like Lonely Planet, or travel sites. Like that would be the key thing for me is finding out, kind of imagine like getting insider knowledge, right? Having a tourist come to your city and leave feeling like, oh yeah, I know Boston, or I know, sorry, wherever, and maybe even next time they come back, they bring their friends there, right? And it's like this cool little thing. That would be my idea, Phil. If you,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as Andrew said, it's all about making them feel special. And I know I spoke about it earlier in the presentation, but the thing that hooked me was a business and philanthropy. So there's been a massive rise of philanthropy over the last 12 months. People do want to give back to communities, be it through their spending or their time. So if you can marry those two ideas and approach a marketplace that, like a locals market, who just needs something more before making a purchasing decision. Like you said, Sean, it's really tough to sell to the domestic market. Your locals will want to support you as much as they can, but they can only support, a certain amount of businesses. So I would say, for me personally, knowing that I've been, affected by this type of campaign, and I have friends who were as well, and anecdotal stories from operators who've started to do it. Link up with a business in the area, and see if you can give them free advertising space on your website or anything like that. But I think that's a massive play for the locals market, who might be on the fence about going on a tour because they might feel like they already know the city or they don't need to do the activity. But when they see something like that, it will help push them towards buying a ticket or a tour. So that would be my tip is, yeah, appeal to people's good nature if you can.
Yeah, I think, and especially on that, like I think the pandemic has really kind of brought to the forefront this idea of supporting local business, which is like, yeah, bringing out good nature. And again, I agree with Phil earlier, like coming out as pleading, right? Like the point you made in the slide is like I personally I wouldn't go for that either. But someone who's like, oh hey, we're doing this new campaign, we're helping these guys and bringing emotion and excitement into it, I think is really important. And I mean, also like in any kind of marketing campaign, me personally, you know, I look for authenticity, right? Especially, you know, if I'm going to do a tour, I want to know that, you know, it goes back to being able to be shown something, you know, that I wouldn't see on myself is something really truly authentic of that location.
Yeah, it's all kind of special things that tie into another that makes a local feel special. They're enjoying themselves while giving back. They're seeing a part of the city they've never seen before. They're getting a discount just for being a local of that area. And if, like Andrew was saying, if you have these on your subject lines or your you know the taglines for your business, locals tour of New York City or NYC, it's exact instead of saying walking tour, just walking tour on TripAdvisor, wherever it is. You've got a statement now which encompasses many different ideas. It's a tour for locals. You know, it's of your city, and you know you can convince people at least to click in and get more information by these little hooks.
Cool. Two more questions. Oh, this one's from Anonymous. How do you get on TripAdvisor when you are a tour operator that only does over the road tours and only one in each location each year? Interesting. Yeah. I would try to go for a company rather than giving location specific data. I mean, another thing is with those types of tours, right? Like just speaking off of TourismTiger, like we have people who they don't really advertise through TripAdvisor for those types of tours, or they don't really try for TripAdvisor. They mainly go through social media and use like targeted ads, and then as well as constantly updating the site, right? You know, especially with limited tours. Let's say, for example, I imagine with tours like that, you probably have a specific deposit date, right? Deposit by this date in order to be able to go on the tour. You know, or for example, someone who does tours of, you know, like sporting events like Wimbledon or something like that. It's TripAdvisor is not particularly amazing for those, but there are other ways, right? And again, you can get other testimonials like Google reviews. And also, I should say, TripAdvisor, you can still get reviews as a company. It doesn't have to be location specific. Yeah, I guess Phil, if you have anything to add on that one.
Yeah, just kind of exactly what you're saying as well. It's about being more targeted in what you're doing and knowing that what you're doing, whether it is uh, only a few reviews because you do limited tours, they will have a bigger meaning. And there are private tour sections. I presume that's what you would do. Private tours on the likes of TripAdvisor, where companies have less reviews and it's easier to climb the rankings. And especially for one-off private tours where the experience might be a little bit more detailed, people do read a lot more reviews and they don't just scan through, you know, subject lines. They delve into them, they read about them, they understand the entire package before they go on them. So you're being watched almost under a microscope. So it's important to have, in your case specifically, every single review be high quality and not really to focus too much on quantity. And then you can really start targeting people and be confident in the fact that your entire online presence is up to scratch. So, but correct me if I'm wrong, Anonymous, if that's not what you meant by that. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out to see if there's any update. But yeah, and I mean, something also is like TripAdvisor is is not the be all end all of, tourism. Like there are plenty of pathways to getting the words out and yeah, targeting. Cool. So last question. Sean Power. Oh, Sean Power said, "Great stuff, lads." Thank you, Sean. But yeah, the last one is another anonymous. If you are just thinking of getting started and do not have huge budget to be able to afford a company to set up to your website, what platform might be good enough to set up your tours website by yourself? And then later you can go to TourismTiger. Love the plug. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like having like a basic website structure is better than nothing. WordPress, yeah, I'm really hesitant. I really don't like sites like Wix and Squarespace. They do make it really easy for beginners to make sites, but they also make it very hard to customize and go further. So like, and they are budget friendly, right? But if that's your main concern, Wix and Squarespace or like Weebly is another one, are not terrible choices. But just know if you choose them to start, and then you'll see your business grow, and you'll get to a site where you come to a point where, okay, I can't do certain things. I want a professional website or professional service or company to set up my website. Transferring out of Wix and Square, they make it kind of difficult. It's not impossible, but just be aware of the possible roadblocks down the way if you start with them. I do think WordPress is fairly friendly to newcomers. There's tons of themes on WordPress, like Divi, right? So one of the popular things about Wix and Squarespace is that you can build from the front end, right? You don't go into the technical like code or anything of the site. You just drag, oh, I want a title. I'll drag a title and type it in. Divi is kind of like that, but for WordPress. And for WordPress sites, you're going to have more freedom in terms of themes and customization options and plugins. Right? There's millions of plugins for WordPress that range from security to SEO. Right? For example, Yoast SEO has a really nice free plugin that will make it really easy for you to put metadata on all pages. And then another thing, like setting up your website, the technical part of it, which I try not to go too into details with, just because it can be quite complex, is hosting. Right? You have to have some sort of company to actually have your server or have your website be on a server and be live. I think Bluehost is like a really good company for that. Namecheap, trying to think, like HostGator is pretty simple. I think it's either Hover or Rover. No, Hover is the popular one in the UK. But yeah, I mean, something is always going to be better than nothing. But yeah, there are some things to avoid when just trying to take a shortcut or a budget friendly approach. Cool. I think that's all the questions. I guess in terms of closing remarks from me, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Werewolf, for having us here. Always happy to share insights and help in the industry. And yeah, I guess I'll leave it off to you, Phil.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andrew, and TourismTiger and everyone for attending. We'll be sending a limited time recording of this presentation afterwards to everyone's email address with our contact information. If you want to reach out, if you've got any questions about the presentation or our companies, we're happy to provide insights. And keep an eye out. We'll be doing more of these webinars when we can as well. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Stay safe and have a great weekend.